All right, we are recording. Good afternoon, everyone. One more time, thank you very much for being here. And let me one more time um, remind you of the housekeeping pieces of information. We are in a webinar mode, which means we cannot see you, we cannot hear you, but please type the questions into the chat and Grace will gather the questions at the end for our Q&A session. And we are going to start. So thank you again for being here. And if you participated in last month's presentation, I hope that you enjoyed it. And we discussed digestive system back then. And we were talking about everything going well. And today we will discuss things going, well, not so well. And there are many things that can go wrong in the digestive system. And unfortunately, many of those things are just our wrongdoing. So taking care of digestive system is really critical because really, when you think about that, it is the gateway to our body. And nearly everything that goes into the body gets through the digestive system first. And all the itsy bitsy cells and the nerves in your mouth and your esophagus and stomach and then small and then large intestine get in contact with everything that comes in. Each particle is being assessed and evaluated as something good and beneficial or something that needs to be eliminated. So it will be either sent up or down to be, you throw up or you pull. So we really want this system to work well because our entire health depends on what these cells do and how they function. So we will start today's session with a little bit of a recap very quickly. We will talk about what we were talking about last month, and then I will take you on the journey where you will be able to learn more about what's happening in your digestive system when things don't go well. You may recall that we were talking about chewing, the work of your teeth and tongue, getting everything chewed before swallowing. Chewing is like a wild party in the mouth where all the teeth are stomping hard on the food and the tongue, like a coach is trying to make sure that everything is scooped where it's supposed to be and it's safely swallowed. Swallowing is truly beautifully orchestrated task, and we also discussed that in detail and all the parts that are involved to make sure that food will go down safely and it will go into esophagus and not into the windpipe. We discussed how food goes down the esophagus and how on the bottom of it or on the top of the stomach, there is a sphincter or a guard that opens the door to the stomach and then closes it very quickly right after the food flops into the stomach. We were talking about food being in the stomach and then traveling down the small intestine to be further digested and absorbed. We were talking about small intestine having a motto of move forward and the large intestine being like a lazy cat, just sitting there relaxed, moving only once every great while and then moving a little bit more to prompt you to go to the bathroom. We talked about villi in your small intestine, how clean they like to be. And we talked about all the bacteria living in your gut. We also talked just a bit about the research that yet and yet again discovers that the gut flora is more important to our health than we have ever imagined. So with that, let's go all the way to the top of the digestive system and let's start here. Chewing is so important, but the problem is that we sometimes eat without paying too much attention. We may be eating on the go, in the car, we may eat while being in rush, we may be eating and working or eating on the edge when watching Law and Order and breathlessly waiting for what will happen next. We gulp on the food, often mindlessly, and we do not give our body, quite frankly, a fair shot in processing it properly. And there are three things that are happening right there, right at the very beginning of the digestive system. And those are, well, the first one, you need to give time to your teeth to chew the food sufficiently. The food mush needs to be mixed with saliva properly to support easy and smooth swallowing. Remember how the esophagus works? It pushes food down via contractions of the muscle, right? So if the food is dry, it's more likely to get stuck in the esophagus. So if you ever eat and you feel like the food does not go all the way down, slow down, take small bites, chew slower, and if needed, help yourself with some water, but slow down, take small bites, and chew slower are the most important parts here. It's a meal, not a race. And there are digestive enzymes in your saliva. So yes, some of the digestive process starts right here, right in your mouth. Of course, sometimes people have difficulties with chewing and swallowing because of other issues like missing teeth, sensitive gums, weak tongue muscles, difficulties with navigating just process of swallowing properly. And all these issues may require dental or medical attention and appropriate tests and diet changes. But here, for the purposes of this webinar, we are just talking about well-functioning chewing and swallowing system and the issues just resulting from rush and just not paying attention. If you ever had this feeling of chunkiness in your stomach, like the food is not sitting there properly, ask yourself, how did I eat? Too fast? Did I chew my food properly? And if the answer is, well, I gulped my food in big chunky bites and I ate it so fast I didn't even notice when it was all gone, well, you suffer and you feel uncomfortable because your stomach now is basically trying to do the work that your teeth were supposed to do, but never had a chance. There is a news flash. Ladies and gentlemen, your stomach doesn't have teeth. So now it's just the muscle that is trying to compensate for that work that didn't happen. And yes, it's uncomfortable because as amazing as your stomach is, it is not designed to do chewing. So again, next time, slow down if you are eating. And one of the most common, or some of the most common issues that people will experience is acid reflux and GERD. So what is acid reflux and what's the difference between acid reflux and GERD? Do you remember the guard on the top of the stomach? Right here, there is that little sphincter. And this is a muscle that basically serves as a doorman that allows the food from the esophagus to smoothly plop into the stomach. So this is the esophagus and the food will basically go right here. And once the food goes down the stomach, this sphincter closes very quickly and tries to stay closed tight so that the strong acid from stomach does not splash up into the esophagus. Well, sometimes that door, that muscle, does not close fast enough or it does not close tight enough, and a very, very strong stomach acid is splashing right back up onto very, very delicate cells of the esophagus. And it hurts. We refer to it as a heartburn, and I think everyone experienced a heartburn at least once. This process of acid from the stomach splashing up the esophagus and causing that heartburn feeling is called acid reflux. Even if it happens rarely, it may be a little concerning, but when it starts happening often, like twice a week or more, then it is actually diagnosed as a disease, GERD, which stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. So gastro, that's your gastric, your stomach. Esophageal, that's your esophagus. Reflex as kind of moving backwards, and disease. So the difference between acid reflux and GERD is just really the frequency, how often that splashing of acid into the esophagus is happening. And this is concerning because besides this whole thing being very unpleasant, it may also lead to a condition called Barrett's esophagus, where that part of the esophagus becomes red and inflamed. And further, there is somewhat increased risk of developing esophagus cancer. And there are the pictures that will show in a slightly different way. So this is basically healthy stomach and healthy esophagus, and you can see the lower sphincter is pretty much closed, but here it's open, and you can see how that lining of the esophagus is getting much more inflamed. And this is actual, there you go. And this is actually the picture of the healthy esophagus and Barrett's esophagus. So you can see the difference in the tissue, how much redder, inflamed, and basically burned this tissue looks. Is there something that you can do to prevent acid reflux? Yes. First, chew your food well so that it's soft and mushy and moist with saliva, and it can easily plop into the stomach, and the door behind it can close easily. Second, do not overeat. Do not stuff yourself. Your stomach can hold only so much. So if you overeat, well, the door may have a little difficulties closing up tightly. And also remember, stomach is a muscle. It will get squeezed simply because you are going to move. And if it's so full that it's not able to hold the food in, well, something's going to give and the sphincter will very likely open. You can think about that like a soft plastic water bottle that is so full that the water spills simply because you moved it and you try to put the cap on. There is this nugget of wisdom that suggests that a meal should be made up of 1/3 of food, 1/3 of water, and 1/3 of air. You should feel comfortably satisfied after a meal, but not really stuffed or overstuffed. And we all overeat sometimes. There's Thanksgiving, there are holidays, maybe a wedding celebration. But if it happens often, over time, the sphincter will get weak. The hinges in the door that are supposed to seal the stomach will become loose and wobbly. And then it may be a little too late. We just are dealing with acid reflux turning into a disease. If you are already experiencing acid reflux or GERD, there are things that you can do in addition to eating less. So avoid or at least eliminate foods that are known to be triggers. And those are greasy foods, spicy foods, alcohol, caffeinated drinks like coffee, tea, and sodas. Yes, sodas can have caffeine, chocolate, and mint. You can see now how having chicken wings with hot sauce and soda on the side may really be a problem. Wear loose clothes. These tight jeans will put a lot of pressure on your stomach, and the risk of things getting squeezed, it just goes up. Sit straight when you are eating. Basically work with the gravity here so that the food has a chance to go down. Do not eat on the couch or in a recliner chair. Hard surface is actually much better to sit on. So sitting at the chair at the dining room table is actually much better than sitting in like an armchair in a living room. Do not play after the meal. That thing of, eating and crashing on the couch to watch TV really should be the song of the past. Relaxing after the meal is fine, but just stay in a sitting position. Another thing that you can do at night, you may consider elevating yourself. So there are those special pillows, wedges, that will allow your body to stay in a position where your throat and your mouth is actually higher than your stomach. So basically the acid has much more difficult time going up. And there are also other ways of doing that. You can just lift the entire bed by using either special cups, you can get them online, but sometimes people will just use things like bricks, pieces of wood, or just old phone books. And then another thing that you can do is actually sleeping on your left side. When you are sleeping on your left side, the natural layout of the stomach, what it will do, it will create a little bit of a ball for the all gastric juices, and they will sit here and will be less likely to spill into your esophagus. And you can see if you are on the right side, quite the opposite is happening. And this is just because of the natural shape of the organs. And we can basically take advantage of how they are shaped, and lying on the left side is much better. Of course, if your stomach is super, super full, and every bit of that space is filled, it's not going to make that much difference, because there is going to be a lot of pressure that will put pressure on that sphincter right here, and there is possibility that the content of the stomach will spill into the esophagus. Lose weight if you are overweight or obese, and stop smoking if you smoke. And another thing that we sometimes don't talk about, don't ignore it. Don't be like, oh, I will just take some antacids and I will call a day. Help your body function better here, okay? All medications have some consequences to them, and you do not want to become antacid dependent if you can help it. Why? Well, because your stomach needs strong acid. This is why your stomach produces acid to begin with, right? And strong acid is very important because it kills harmful organisms that may get into your system. If stomach acid is not strong enough, these bad guys may not get killed and cause some infections later. Strong stomach acid is also responsible for activating digestive digestive enzymes like pepsin, which is necessary for digesting protein. And it's also triggering pancreas to release enzymes needed to break down pretty much all the foods. So simply put, stomach acid prevents infections and makes sure that our digestion process moves forward and in a right manner. We all overdo it sometimes. So if you need antacid here and there once in a blue moon, it's one thing. But if you pop antacid drops several times a week, you really may need to take a hard and honest look at your meals. There are many other things that can go wrong, but for most people, vomiting, diarrhea, and constipation may be actually the most tasking. So let's talk about these for a moment. Vomiting happens for the same way for everyone. The brain goes into the emergency mode. It switches all the red alarms that are available on. We turn pale as blood flashes to the abdomen. We start producing lots and lots of saliva, and then we throw up. All the contents of the digestive system are basically being expelled. Saliva is produced to protect our mouth and our teeth from the harshness of stomach acid that we were just talking about. There is a coordinated muscle response that basically squeezes us like a toothpaste tube from the bottom to the top. All the sphincters or all the doors are opening, the guards stand to the side, and the content of our digestive system are violently propelled forward. And I'm saying contents of our digestive system as we can throw up when our stomach is empty as well. Small intestine is able to expel its contents as well. The only difference in this process is how much notice we get. Sometimes there is that salivating feeling and a bout of nausea, giving us a bit of time to run and find the bathroom, but sometimes the response is so immediate that we don't even have the time to leave the table. While the process is more or less the same for everyone, why we vomit can be very different depending on the circumstances. The easiest to explain and also happening the fastest is vomiting related to food poisoning. As you may remember, digestive system evaluates everything that comes in, and it expects some bad bacteria and pathogens and viruses. They are part of the package. Maybe the fork that you were given to eat your potato salad was not the cleanest, and now you are eating chicken wings, and you will consume some of the bacteria from fork when you lick the reminders of the hot sauce from your fingers. And that's fine. This is why there is acid in the stomach, and this is why we also have defense mechanisms in our small intestine. But when general count exceeds what we can handle, and instead of a camping family of bacteria, we ingest a whole well-organized army of bacteria, the digestive system will deal with the situation by expelling the bacteria together with the food that brought them to begin with. This is why we start feeling off and queasy so quickly after eating something that bothers us. And this is also why we are feeling so much better after we throw up. Another, in our body's mind, good reason to throw up is stress. We produce a hormone called CRF, corticotropin releasing factor. This is a stress hormone, and moderate amounts of this hormone in our body are just fine. As a matter of fact, our body produces it every morning to prepare us to handle the day and also to calm the immune system so that it's not in a hyper mode. But more of CRF will be released in response to a stressful situation. And more of it is going to be produced if the stress level escalates even more. And if levels of this CRF hormone reach certain pretty high level, the digestive system will react to it. It will make an executive decision that it is not a good time to rest and digest. There is a more urgent task on hand than digesting your morning waffles, and it will get rid of the food to preserve the energy so that you can deal with whatever it is that you are facing. So when you or somebody you know vomits because of stress, know that this is just our body's way to protect us, the best way it knows how. One of the questions that you may have is why some of us feel so nauseated and possibly vomit when we travel. Commonly known as motion sickness, this condition may make us feel nauseated and possibly throw up in the car or on the bus or in the train, not as often on the airplane. So what happens here? There is no harmful bacteria, there is no stress. What's going on? Well, when we travel, the body and the brain in this situation are receiving very, very different messages. Eyes are registering a lot of motion. The trees and buildings are just flying by. I mean, we are moving 60 miles per hour or more, and if we are on the highway or on the train, we can go very, very fast. But our balance sensors in our ears tell the brain, rightfully so, that we are not moving. We are in fact sitting still, relaxed, and safely buckled up. This mismatch between perception of motion and lack of motion is, on the evolutionary level, associated with poisoning. And people actually may experience the same symptoms after drinking way too much alcohol, where they are feeling sick and nauseated and they possibly vomit, and they feel like the room is spinning even though they are laying motionlessly on the couch or in the bed. It's basically the same concept here. In many cases, diarrhea will be a different way for body to deal with the same problems. But instead of sending the food stuff up, the body sends it down. It literally flushes it down violently and fast to get rid of pathogens that may cause more serious issues. You may react with diarrhea to eating foods or drinking beverages if you travel to places with different climate and or with different sanitary standards than your own. Local water, local dairy products with different bacteria strains in them, and just commonly present bacteria on foods will be just fine and non-threatening for locals, but they may not be okay for you. Too many new pathogens entering your body all at once may cause what we call traveler's diarrhea. And this condition illustrates this point precisely. Once something that our body perceives as too much of a threat enters our body and immune response would be too costly, digestive system will just rapidly get rid of it to protect us. It is slightly different, but you can think about it in a similar terms when it comes to food intolerance. Something somewhere is not tolerated, it causes the body to get upset, and the body is just trying to get rid of it. This is why lactose intolerance, for example, may cause diarrhea. The body is trying to get rid of lactose that is not able to be digested properly. While diarrhea sometimes seems to be ignored by people, it will just go away. It is a very serious condition and you really want to pay close attention to your body once you experience it. It comes with the risk of dehydration, as body, instead of absorbing much needed fluids, uses them to literally flush the digestive system tube. That may also come with electrolyte deficiencies. And if combined with fever, for example, it will be even more tasking on the body. Don't ignore it. There are situations where people end up in the hospital and they need to be rehydrated with IV because of diarrhea. Using lactose intolerance to have bowel movement, or I will just drink some milk and then I will go to the bathroom kind of situation, is not a way to work towards a healthy bowel movement. While technically it works, it would be like calling firefighters and have them come over and hose your floors because you need to wash them. Sure, floors are wet and clean, but now you flooded your neighbor below and you need to replace the carpet in the living room because it absorbed all the excess water. Not a right way to manage the whole task, right? So let's pause here for a moment and put our gut, our digestive system on the side. And let's talk about two other things that I think are worth explaining here. So the first one is lactose intolerance. And basically what it is, it's just lack of ability or reduced ability to produce an enzyme called lactase. Lactase breaks down the lactose, which is basically milk sugar, so your body can absorb it. And because lactose does not get broken, unpleasant symptom after eating something or drinking milk may occur. You may experience bloating, diarrhea, and gas. So this graph is actually showing that. So there is lactose, which is the sugar milk. There is the lactase enzyme. You can think about that like scissors that are literally breaking this molecule that looks like a figure 8 into two separate balls. And this is literally what happens. You have those two molecules that are connected. They look like a two-ball snowman or a number 8. And lactase is basically like scissors that will just cut it in between and separate those two elements. That's all it is. And the degree of lactose intolerance may vary greatly. You may be okay with some milk if it's part of a whole dish, for example, like a small bowl of clam chowder. You may be okay with milk in your coffee, but you may not tolerate straight cereal, milk with cereal. You may not tolerate milk at all, but be perfectly fine with yogurt. Yogurt, by the way, has much less lactose in it. So it varies greatly. Identify your limit and don't trigger your body unnecessarily. It is a bit of an unpleasant annoyance for your body to deal with, okay? The other thing that I want to talk about is basically difference between food intolerance and food allergy. A food intolerance happens when your body can't properly break down certain food or ingredient like lactose that we just discussed. If you introduce food item that your body has difficulties with, oh, it will complain and it will unleash all the unpleasantries it can, and it will let you know how it feels. It will make you feel bloated, it will make you fart, it will send you to the bathroom, probably more than once. But the key point here is it's not life-threatening. Food allergy, on the other hand, is a response usually to protein in the food, and this protein is being seen as such threat for the body that it launches full-blown immune response. So if you break in hives or if your throat is closing after ingesting an item, it is allergy, and quite frankly, it can be deadly. People with onset of allergy reaction can go into anaphylactic shock, and if there is no immediate medical intervention, the encounter with allergen like shellfish or peanuts actually may end up deadly. Individuals with allergies should get the tests done and get an EpiPen and carry it with them everywhere, right? It's not helpful if it's in the bedroom drawer and you are in the restaurant and you just ate something that may be causing an allergy. Further, they really cannot play with the allergy that they have. Only because, you know, my throat was tingling just a little bit when I had the shellfish last time. It doesn't mean that it will be the case the next time. the next reaction may escalate rapidly and be nothing like the previous one. So the difference between intolerance and allergy is huge. Intolerance is basically your body not being happy with what you ate. Allergy is your body going to war with what you ate, and without timely intervention, there actually may be casualties. So, okay, let's go back to our gut. And let's talk a little bit about constipation now. As I said earlier, having loose stool, so having diarrhea, may happen because of stress, but stress, interestingly, may also cause constipation. And we all probably experience that when traveling. First, well, there is the traveling stress. Did I lock the house? Did I turn the iron off? Come on, Lyft, hurry up, right? Will I make my plane connection? Then there is this unusual diet. Airport sandwich and some weird smoothie suddenly make up a dinner. There may be a time change, and we finally arrive to our destination. And there is different room, different bed, different bathroom, new toilet, and the body says, nope, I'm not going. So a bit of constipation when traveling is common, but you do not want it to last for too long. So going back to your normal eating routine, relaxing, drinking plenty of water, and maybe introducing some intentional movement may be the best things to do in this situation. Body really needs to feel that things are back to normal and that everything is okay, even if it isn't our own toilet. Beyond travel, there are 3 things that may cause constipation. Not enough water, not enough fiber, and one that we rarely talk about, broken communication within the body. The first 2 you probably heard a lot about. Any dietitian will ask, sometimes several times a day, and how much fluid do you drink? Fluid is super important for proper and healthy bowel movement. It keeps the stool soft and easy to pass. And if you ever made oatmeal and left it on the bowl on the countertop, you know what happens. The oats get dry and kind of rubbery. It happens because the water got absorbed by the oats and there just wasn't enough of it. And once you add more water, you will kind of reconstitute the oats back to their normal consistency. This is basically what happens in your intestines. As the stool sits in your colon and there is not enough water to go around, it will get dry and hard and difficult to pass. So you want to drink enough to keep everything soft and somewhat slushy. Straining, besides the going being unpleasant and requiring a lot of force and pushing, may also lead to hemorrhoids. Bleeding may happen. There is so much straining and pushing that blood veins in the anal area get ruptured. And when that happens, stool will be covered in bright red blood. You do not need any medical education to know that this is not good. Let's talk about fiber for a moment and explain the differences between 2 types of fibers. There is soluble and insoluble fiber. They both have many other health benefits, including decreasing cholesterol, reducing risk of high blood pressure, improving diabetes, and also reducing risk of certain cancers. But here I will focus on fiber only in context of the bowel movement, okay? So soluble fiber dissolves in water when digested, and it creates gel-like substance. This is the type of fiber that basically absorbs the water. If you think about soluble fiber like a sponge, you will see how it gets softer the more water gets into it. And to a certain level, this is how soluble fiber works. You don't want this sponge to dry out so much that it's stiff, hard, and does not accept any water. So this is what soluble fiber will do for your bowel movement. It basically absorbs the water and it allows the stool to kind of be moist and soft. This is also the type of fiber that we want to eat when we have diarrhea. Since it absorbs fluid, it will help with the diarrhea, right? It makes sense. The gel will basically absorb the water that otherwise would just run through you, and the presence of soluble fiber will slow down the whole process. Insoluble fiber goes through your digestive system pretty much unchanged, and you can detect insoluble fiber in some of the foods that are stringy. So when you think about celery stalks, when you think about green beans or cabbage, and also you can detect insoluble fiber in all those foods that make you scream, it tastes like a cardboard. Yep, these high fiber muffins were baked with bran, and it is insoluble fiber in bran that gives them this specific cardboardy mouthfeel. You can think of insoluble fiber like fibers of a broom, actually. First, they are the fibers that play with the villi of your small intestine and keep them engaged and healthy. Remember? Second, as these fibers move through your system and basically play tag with your villi, they also pick up all the gunk and junk that needs to be eliminated. Think about all the dust bunnies and hair and dirt specks that end up sticking to the broom after you sweep. This fiber, in addition to picking up all those things, also attracts water, but it does not absorb it. So it helps soluble fiber. And finally, when mixed with soluble fiber and waste and into what will become a poop, it will make it bulkier, it will make it less compact, and with that, again, easier to pass. Because insoluble fiber does not absorb water, it is not good type of fiber for diarrhea. As a matter of fact, having insoluble fiber when you have diarrhea may make it worse. So the type of fiber that we are eating really matters. Both fibers are very important, and I could give you a list of good sources of both, but there is an easier way of thinking about that. Just have your vegetables and fruits, your whole grains, and your nuts, and you will be set. Many fruits and vegetables have combinations of both fibers in the different proportions. So if you eat variety of produce and you have some whole grains and nuts in your diet, you don't need to do any math. Mother Nature has already took care of all of it for you. If you are experiencing constipation or diarrhea, so basically you are dealing with your digestive system not working properly, a dietitian can help you figure out which fiber you are in need of, but your baseline should be plenty of fiber and fluid on a daily basis. And if your diet is low in fiber, start slow and increase fiber gradually. We dietitians have some tools in our toolbox, and I wouldn't be a decent dietitian if I didn't share with you Bristol's tool chart. Yep, if you didn't know it existed, it does. There is a legit poop chart that medical professionals use to help patients navigate hard way to soft poop. So this is basically how it looks like, and type 4, which is right here, which is the poop that looks like sausage or snake and is smooth and soft, this is really the ideal. Some people will also accept type 3, that is still like a sausage, but it will have some cracks on its surface. It's a little bit harder. And as we move towards type 2 and type 1, we are basically dealing with constipation. Okay, separate, hard, difficult to pass, and there is a lot of straining and a lot of pushing, and this is where we are dealing with the risk of hemorrhoids as well. And then going down from that ideal type 4, we can end up with more water and more water and more water in our poop, basically ending with totally diarrhea-like bowel movement, watery with no solid pieces at all, and it being entirely liquid, okay? So really you want to be around the type 4, or really the type 4, or as close to it as possible. So this is a really good chart to figure out where I am right now, because if you are really not aware of that, you may think that you are perfectly fine and you may be just type 2. So this is a good reference point. But besides drinking plenty of fluids and eating fiber, there is also something else that may cause constipation. And that's not going when you need to go. Do you remember those two muscles that interact and help you make the decision to go? The muscle that makes you feel, I need to go, and then the other muscle that you can control by squeezing your butt to send the message, it's not a good time to go right now. If you remember, these two muscles are talking to each other, and you are also consciously involved in making the decision to go to the bathroom. But if the I need to go muscle sends that message, and there is never a good time to go because we are out, because we have guests, because of a million other things, that communication between these two muscles can break and constipation may result. And it will be there not because of lack of water or fiber. It will be there because our I need to go muscle feels deflated, beaten up, talked over, and never listened to. So at some point, it stops participating in the entire process. The good news is that this mechanism can be repaired, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And the question that I want to pose here is, why break it in the first place? Go if you feel like you need to go. Sometimes you may be so backed up that you will need help in form of stool softeners and or laxatives. They will end up doing the same job, but in two different ways. Stool softener will attract water into the gut and into the stool itself to make it softer and easy to pass. And now I want you to hear your dietitian in your head asking you, how much water have you been drinking? Because yes, you need water as well to make stool softeners work as well. Laxatives can attract water as well, but if too much laxative is taken, it may result in diarrhea, as well as other unpleasant side effects like gas. Other laxatives will work with oils and fats. They will literally coat the poop in oil to make it just slide through. Think about holding a lemon coated in oil in your hands. It will be slippery and difficult to contain, and that's pretty much what will happen with poop. It will slide right out. Liquid paraffin, not really recommended anymore, but historically used as laxative, or mineral oil will work that way. They may lead to oily and unpleasant bowel movements, and in a long term, they may lead to fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies. Hence, other methods of dealing with constipation are preferred, and if you are going to use laxatives, please consult with a doctor to find the best one for you, and aim for laxative to be very, very short-term use medication, just to jumpstart the process. There's also something that I want to talk about, which is 3-day rule. And this is something that may happen with laxative. So your intestine has your large intestine has 3 parts to it. And if you go to the bathroom on the regular basis every day, you will empty only 1/3 of your intestine. So today, you will eliminate the part of waste that is marked in blue. And then what will happen, the green will basically move where the blue was. And this is your tomorrow's poop. And yellow is basically your after tomorrow's poop. And this is basically how healthy bowel movement is working. It's happening every day, but we are only emptying this last part of the intestine. When we use laxative, what may happen is that everything, all the waste from all 3 parts of the colon is being emptied. So it will take a little bit of time for the colon to really fill all 3 parts and before you go to the bathroom again. So if you look only on this picture, because you just took laxative, that blue part will become the poop basically 3 days from now on average. For some people, it can be a little bit longer. Okay, and this is where many people will get concerned. They will be like, wait, what, still no poop? And then they may take another laxative, putting themselves on this vicious cycle between constipation, laxative using, empty bowel, large intestine, and really not interested and not understanding what's going on. So 3 days wait after laxative use would be normal and expected. For some, it may be a little bit longer. And when waiting for your perfect poop to arrive, that will not strain your digestive system, that will not cause pushing, that will not cause any forcing or bleeding. Have yourself some yummy vegetables and fruits, and of course, you know what's coming? Plenty of water. Alrighty, so this is the presentation. I hope you learned something, and we are going to move to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Agata, for sharing this wisdom with us. I see we have one question in the Q&A, which I'll read you in a moment. And to anyone else, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to share those in the Q&A or the chat. So the first question we have, is it advisable to add a probiotic or prebiotic to your diet to help the gut?
Yes. Yes, so it depends with the caveat, it also depends how you are going to add it. But if you are thinking about foods that are coming with pre or probiotics, so we are talking things like yogurt, fermented foods like sauerkraut, but the fermented sauerkraut, kimchi, yes, 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 and one more time, yes. And we also want to add inulin, which is the fiber that feeds the good bacteria, and it's actually very commonly found in things like onion and garlic. So just go ahead, add a little bit onion and garlic to your diet pretty much anytime you can. It doesn't need to be raw, you can cook it. So, you know, making sure that there is plenty of onion in the soup, and you can add it to salad. And any onion will work. So if you don't like the yellow onion because you find it a little bit too sharp, you can definitely use some milder. But a very short response to this question, especially if you are getting those items, prebiotics, probiotics from food, yes, go for it.
Thanks. I guess a follow-up question, you touched on this a little bit, but in case anyone isn't aware, what are probiotics and prebiotics? What's the difference between those two?
So probiotics are basically good bacteria that are in your digestive system and are working within you, are living within you and are helping your digestive system work properly. Prebiotics are specific fibers that bacteria especially likes. So the way I think about that, if you are going to have a new person living with you in your household, right? And this person is there and does your laundry and cleans up your house and unloads your dishwasher and picks up your mail and takes your trash out, you sure would like this person to hang around for a little bit longer. So if you learn that they like one particular thing, you may want to make sure that that particular thing is always in the fridge. And that's basically what you are doing with introducing prebiotics, which are those fibers found in onions and garlics and green onions as well. Introducing those to your diet so that the bacteria that is already in your digestive system or is introduced with yogurt, for example, stays there and it's happy. It doesn't decide, you know, to move away.
Great explanation. And I see a follow-up question that has popped up. Can you get all the probiotics and prebiotics from your food?
So, it's a very interesting question. So the simple answer would be probably yes, but I want you to think about your gut flora the way you would think about garden. Even if you are going to do sowing, not everything will kind of come and bloom at once. So really the best idea is to have those prebiotics and probiotics in your diet on the regular basis every day and basically keeping it up. And over time, your gut will start improving and getting better. And because we are talking about living organisms, right? Those are bacteria, they are living organisms. They are also going to spread on their own in your digestive system, especially if there is plenty of prebiotics for them to go about, to take. So what you really want to make sure of is that you are introducing good strains of the bacteria in your gut. So they take the root, literally, they take the root and they kind of take over your digestive system. But it's not something that will happen immediately. It's going to require some time and some patience. And the idea is just think about that as little bit every day, the way you would actually do weeding in your garden, right? It's much easier to go and do 10-15 minutes weeding every Saturday than wait for it to just be overgrown, and then it will be hours and hours, and your knees will hurt and your lower back will hurt. So a little bit every day is a way to go.
Great, thank you. And I see a couple more questions popping up. One, Agata, this is about talking to your doctor or dietitian if you have any concerns, especially if you may be immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. Do you want to speak to that a little?
So the same thing will apply, especially when you are talking about laxatives. You want to talk to your doctor and basically figure out the plan of action, almost no matter what your health status. It's basically it's just good practice. And then everything else I think would be really treated on a one-on-one basis, because if there is condition that is, it's immunocompromised, the individual's immunocompromised, number one, what condition are we talking about? What's the current status? What are the medications that are being already on the table? So those are really the things that we really would like to look at. But the idea would be the same pretty much for everybody, that we really are aiming for regular and healthy bowel movement. Things are happening and sometimes they are natural and expected, like traveling situation that I was talking about. But if something is becoming really more concerning, starting with stool softeners, if necessary with laxative, but then really under doctor's supervision, and then really try to get to the point where things are happening on its own, just with proper food, sufficient amount of water, and a little bit of movement. And I'm specifically saying movement, not exercise, because just mild, gentle, relaxed walking will be sufficient. So if you are suffering from constipation and you are able, just take 15-20 minutes walk on a daily basis. That actually can make the difference. If you think about the babies that are colicky, what we are doing, we'll put them on their back and we will basically massage their tummies by moving their legs kind of up and down. It's exactly the same motion. We are basically making the baby walk to massage everything in the lower abdominal area. Well, we can do that by just taking a walk if it's doable for us, if it's possible for us.
That reminds me of the happy baby yoga pose. Also could kind of have a similar effect.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know we have a couple more minutes and a couple more questions. If you're vegan, what can you substitute for dairy yogurt? Any thoughts?
So there are no dairy yogurts. There are many yogurts that are made with like oat milk, with almond milk. I believe there is a cashew yogurt as well. But if you are looking for good bacteria, I would really go for fermented foods like sauerkrauts and pickles, but the real pickles, kimchi. Those would be the go-to foods. And again, especially if you are introducing fermented foods, start slowly. And when I say slowly, if you are really going for like sauerkraut, truly fermented sauerkraut, start with like 1 forkful a day. Because if you eat a lot of it, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's so yummy, and you eat like 1/3 of a jar, it will be again too much good stuff for your system to kind of handle it. Our digestive system is really creature of habit. So we don't really want to do changes too quickly, too rapidly, too abruptly.
Awesome. And one more question or comment here. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. I got something about organic aloe vera juice on a regular basis. Is that something you're familiar with?
I would need to look into that a little bit more, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, same. I'm not too familiar with that either, but an interesting question, And yeah, it looks like that's all of the Q&A we have at the moment.
All right. Thank you everyone for participating. I really appreciate your presence here. I hope that you learned something today, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Take care and be safe, okay?